everyone. We are so excited. Welcome to A Wife Like Me. If you don't know me yet, I'm your host and your friend, Amanda Davison, and we are joined with a new friend today. This has been so fun. We've had so many new friends. Oftentimes we have old friends on, not old, but you know what I mean. Like we've known them, they've been on before, but we've been having just a string of new friends. We're so excited about that. I love to learn and hear about your stories and all that. So, new friend here today, Melissa Johnson, and we're celebrating her new book, Soul Deep Beauty. Love the cover. The subtitle, Fighting for Our True Worth in a World Demanding Flawless. Hello. So good. So welcome, Melissa, to the Wife Like Me podcast and just our community. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Why don't we start? I'd love to just have you share a little bit about yourself so that we know who we're talking to.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist here in Minnesota. I also am an adjunct instructor at Bethel University. I teach a class on essentially soul well-being, and I'm a certified spiritual director. So basically, I have like an integrated, I love taking an integrated look at well-being and thriving as humans. And I also host a podcast called Impossible Beauty. And then recently, from kind of playing out this idea that I have been deeply looking at, and I was going to say researching, but it's not that analytical. Taking a look at redefining beauty as the life of God at work in us and among us, and Impossible Beauty is where I have conversations with all sorts of amazing people and authors and therapists and dietitians to help us shed ideas like false ideas around beauty that our society gives us, and then walking into this new definition of the life of God at work in us and among us. And so I'm a new author, as you mentioned. My book, Soul Deep Beauty, came out in June. And that book is basically my journey of how my life took this crazy turn, and I'm now talking about redefining beauty just because I am so passionate about it.
Well, let's talk about that. How did you come to write this book? I know, you're not afraid to shy away. I mean, that's what you dive into in your book. Shame, eating disorders, it's so prevalent. They are prevalent. What is your story, and how did this book, come to be?
Yes. So I was, working as a therapist and also seeing my own therapist about, like maybe 8 or 9 years ago, when my therapist let me know, like, hey, your relationship with food and exercise have gotten a bit out of balance. And she was starting to call it an eating disorder, which for me was honestly surprising, I would say. I mean, I knew something was off balance in my life, but what I like to talk about in the book and kind of expose is just how these disordered messages around food, our bodies, and moving our bodies, it's just the toxic waters we swim in. And so I, attribute probably partially denial, but also partially or largely because these messages and these ideas around our food intake and our bodies have become so camouflaged. They were camouflaged to me because they become so normalized. So I ended up having to pause work and do intensive eating disorder treatment. And it was there that I started to see that, and honestly, this took a while. It was probably not until like 6 months in or so that I started to see that a lot of the same beliefs and struggles that were going on in the therapy rooms in intensive eating disorder treatment were also the same beliefs, struggles, and oftentimes even behaviors that were occurring outside of the therapy practice or therapy office and group therapy rooms. So I saw my peers, I saw my friends, I saw commercials lauding this idea of the glorification of losing weight as like the silver bullet for happiness and social acceptance. I saw things like food restriction being seen as a positive thing. And what I mean by that too is the amount of food, but also food, large like food groups. Like we see different quote food plans or wellness plans where we're supposed to omit certain food groups for quote health or essentially weight loss or toning our bodies or shaping our bodies, I should say. And so I started to see that these same things and beliefs about beauty and body image were happening in the larger culture. And so I started to see how these messages were disintegrating and disconnecting us, and essentially like uh this is such maybe a big way to say this, but like killing the souls of women, and I would say men as well, in a lot of ways, because of how we were following after this broken brand of beauty that we have been sold, that we are being sold. And so on the other side of treatment, I realized I couldn't like not say something about what I was noticing, because I saw how these messages had taken me away from my true self and who God had created me to be. And I started to see like, wow, what an amazing tool of the enemy to think we are doing it, quote, right, by eating healthy and moving our bodies. But I think so often it can become this all consuming endeavor. And we then lose the headspace, the heart space to pursue maybe the invitations that God has for us. And so I started the Impossible Beauty platform. And originally actually came the book. I was not setting out to write a book, but I just felt this message like deeply, like so strong within me. And then from the manuscript came this Impossible Beauty podcast. And then years later, I think it was about I don't know, between 6 and 8 years later, finally the book has come out after a long journey.
Wow. Okay. So I just took already like a page of notes. Okay. So yeah, I'm thinking of all these things like the glorification of losing weight, the food restriction as good, omitting certain foods, and how those things are not only even, I mean, that's just really our bodies and food, but then yeah, those messages are killing the souls of women as we follow after a broken brand of beauty. Whoa. And then you said something that I need you to finish this sentence.
Mm.
You don't even have to remember how you said it, but feel free to say it however you want now, because I didn't get to write it down, but I want us to go back to it. You said something along the lines of, and then I couldn't get the rest of it. We think we're doing it right by trying to be healthy, but we
so we think we're doing it right because we think we're being healthy, but really we are buying into largely what Christy Harrison would define as diet culture, like this life thief. So I'm gonna, if it's okay, I'm gonna go ahead and give us Christy Harrison's definition of diet culture, because I think, and this is the thing, there are huge systems behind this. So I'm going to talk about diet culture, but I also think this is true of beauty culture. We think we're doing it right in terms of, I think, doing what we need to do in order to have social capital or actually have a voice, which sadly that might be true in terms of, I think that there is like currency to the more closely we align to American ideals of beauty or Western ideals of beauty. But I also think as Christians, I think that we can see through the lie that is, and how toxic that is, and how wrong that hierarchy is. But when I'm talking specifically about this health, this idea of health, I am referring basically to Christy Harrison's definition of diet culture. So I'll go ahead and quote her. For people who aren't familiar with her, she hosts the Food Psych podcast and what is it called? Maybe like Rethinking Wellness. But so she's an author, a journalist, and a registered dietitian. And so she says this: diet culture is a system of beliefs that equates thinness, muscularity, and particular body shapes with health and moral virtue, promotes weight loss and body reshaping as a means of attaining higher status, demonizes certain foods and food groups while elevating others, and oppresses people who don't match its supposed picture of health. By and large, Western culture is diet culture. This way of thinking about food and bodies is so embedded in the fabric of our society in so many different forms that it can be hard to recognize. It masquerades as health, wellness, and fitness. And so, that last part there, I think, is really important to concentrate on, because I think what used to be, like maybe really clear diet culture, like Jenny Craig or like Weight Watchers of the 80s and 90s, what we started to see about diets is they have a really high quote failure rate. And I don't even like the word failure because it would mean that weight loss equals failing. And I don't think that's true at all. But what they started to realize, the diet industry started to realize, is the research was not good, meaning that I think diets would fail up to like 95% of the time. People would either regain the weight or regain the weight and then some. And so there's been this rebranding where instead of saying like, oh no, it's not a diet, it's about health, or it's health and wellness. And so essentially the goal of diet culture is to make money. And so if we can sell supplements or Ozempic or some other kind of meal plan, which is essentially, whether we're calling it health or wellness, if it's about weight loss and food restriction, we know that diet culture is at the heart of it. But also, I think there is this hierarchy of bodies that comes with diet culture. So again, it's equating thinness and muscularity in particular body shapes with health and moral virtue. And so this goes very deep. And I think we even see this I think there are some Christian roots here. We see where perhaps in Christian culture where thinness has been equated with saintly virtue and self-denial. And so I think that, again, I had thought in my own life that I was equating being thin and food restriction with quote health. When I followed that rabbit trail and followed it to its end, it actually brought me into disorder and essentially started to suck the life out of me. And I mean that cognitively, I couldn't think as well because I wasn't getting the nutrition. We also know some things about, what happens to our cognition when we're not getting enough nutrition. I think I became less myself. We know that people who can go into more of a malnourished or starvation type state, we lose things like humor, we'll lose things like just basically that life spark. That is essentially what happened with me. And I'll say one more thing, Amanda, then I'll stop talking and just get really passionate. I think that for me, yes, there was the eating disorder diagnosis. However, my fear with even naming that is I think that this is a much larger problem. I think it's eating disorders and then some. I think this is a problem. I think so. The one survey said that there were, in this particular survey, 75% of women reported disordered eating behaviors. And, we know that I think another study that I report or talk about in the book said that 97% of women reported having one I hate my body moment during the day. And so basically to say, I think that this is large, people who have been, I was going to say women at large, but I should say even people who have been exposed to the Western beauty ideals and diet culture would likely benefit from what I'm trying to do in this book is expose these messages and these lies for what they are and the life depleting nature of them, and then turn our eyes to something that actually is going to be integrating and life-giving.
I'm taking notes.
Sure. Thanks.
A lot right now in my brain and on paper. So that's oh my land. I love this. This is good work. It's good to talk about this. I think we don't really talk about it. Here's what, what I'm reflecting on right now. I'm reflecting on my friends and hanging out, and we're catching up or grabbing dinner or whatever we're doing. And what are we talking about? We're poking fun at ourselves, our bodies. I mean, that's not what we're doing really, but it comes up here and there, they'll be sprinkled in the conversation here and there of trying to, I don't know, maybe I should probably just get a salad, or something. Cause that's the good thing, right thing to do. Or, but I don't eat salad. Yes. But just,
yes.
I don't know, just, it always comes up in conversation, and
yes.
I don't think we even know we're doing it because I've never even thought about it till just a second. And it's very fascinating to me that we could be feeding the beast literally as and we don't even know it. So I do want to talk, not quite yet, but I do want to talk then, how do we turn our attention to what's life-giving? How can we feel an honor, feel good? Because I think one of the things that, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, but one of the things I'm trying to do better at, I don't know if you know Jennifer Taylor Wagner. Do you know her? You should know her.
It's
You
ringing a
guys,
bell.
you should be friends. She's so
Okay.
cool, and she has a book called Your Good Body.
Okay.
And so she's adorable and so fun. I feel like this is what's going to happen, Melissa. After today, we're going to be really good friends, and
Good.
we barely know each other, but it's fine. People. So Jennifer and I are really good friends. And
No, that's great. That's great. I love that. I love that. Thank you.
but like the cool thing is like she has helped me to learn. I'm learning how to honor my body better
Mm,
and like
mm,
actually be gentle with my body, which
mm,
is like what? It's like a whole new concept. But so I want to get into how can we as women and then like
mm.
live this out ourselves, teach our daughters how to do this, like what's the answer, right? Because like if the what is our end result that we hope for?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when it comes to our bodies or our beauty or whatever,
Mhm.
or food or whatever, I don't know. I don't even know the right answer. I would think for me, like if you were to ask me that, I'm asking myself that, like, hopefully maybe it's like I want to honor my body. I want to honor
Mm.
this body that God gave me in a way that just honors him. So like I want to be gentle and honor it. What does that look like? I don't know. Each day it's different. And you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there. Um, and so then how do we teach our kids to honor their bodies, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
So I want to get into that and I want to get into how can we turn our attention to what is life-giving? But first, I do want to dive into more because you said what you do in the book. You expose the lies for what they are. Let's
Mhm.
talk about some of those, like this ideal, this thin ideal. What does that look like when we're dealing with our daughters, our sons? Like,
Yeah.
how do we ourselves see these lies? What are they? Go wherever you want with that.
Yes. And so that's like that's why I'm so passionate about this book, Amanda, because I kind of like went into this deep dive after I was in treatment and I was like I was just started to see like I think I've been being fed like crap when it comes to like and sorry, I don't know if that that word offends some people, but
You're good.
okay. Like when it comes to yeah, beauty and body image and food, like I just started to see like the tip of the iceberg. And so I just did this deep dive. And that is like part one of the book. And so that's why I'm like so passionate about this book because I really went into some of these lies around like, okay, where did the thin ideal come from and why is it actually not helpful? Um, Things like what does it do to our brains and bodies when we follow some of these lies of diet culture? And so some of the lies of the diet culture and of beauty culture, I would say is that I think that there is this touting of being flawless and I think getting worse, I would say, with social media like filters. I think that used to be, like growing up, for me, it was like print media. So like we like I would look at celebrities and such in magazines. And I knew, I think I had heard something about like photoshopping but now it's not just photoshopped celebrities in magazines, it is our best friend. It is our own image that is being filtered. And so if my image is being filtered, when I'm looking at myself on Zoom or on on Instagram or something, then when I go to look at my own image in the mirror and I have like pores, like that is going to be a little unsettling to me, likely thinking like, well, I should be looking like X, Y, or Z, my filtered image or my friend's filtered images. And so I think we're just getting this inundation of a false idea of what we should look like this plastic or flawless image. And I think AI is actually making this worse as well. When it comes to, I just saw that there are like AI Instagram profiles now where it's literally fake people, and I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah.
So we have that being thrown at us. And then we have some of these messages then coming at us from diet culture about, food restriction and X food is bad for you. It used to be again, and like I think in the 90s, it was like fat was bad for you. So everything was low fat. And so, but now we're like, no, actually fat is good for you. Now it's gluten is like the devil suddenly. And So it's very interesting to see how I think exposing, like, follow the money, I guess. So exposing some of these ideas around how people are making money off of diet culture and wellness culture. Supplements are trending so much right now. And I just interviewed Christy Harrison again on my podcast, and she talks about how a lot of supplements actually are not FDA approved, and just basically, I'm not trying to like shatter the world of supplements, but just to say there is a lot of money, tons of money actually, banking on beauty and diet culture. And so I think what part one of my book is doing is trying to bring some awareness to media literacy, meaning how can we be more critical consumers of media and seeing, when things have been retouched or certain body parts have been enhanced. And then I also think learning why it's important probably to turn down the volume on media, and see through the lies of it, and also see through the lies of advertising and beauty and diet culture and the massive amounts of money that are purposely being made off of our shame. So by purposefully eliciting shame, people are making billions and billions of dollars. And so I think it can be really helpful to start seeing through the matrix that has been built around these industries so that we can not become like caught up in the emotional gravity of it to elicit. So shame is being elicited. We can actually instead look at it logically and be like, oh, I see what they're doing here. They're trying to make me feel bad about X, Y, or Z about my body, or X, Y, or Z about what I'm eating so that they can sell me a product. Those are some pieces. Yeah. And I don't even know if I answered your question, Amanda. Please tell me if there's something lingering.
No, I'm like, whoa. Okay. Well, I would love to hear more about what you just said. You said people are making billions off of our shame.
Yeah.
Let's like simmer on that for a bit. Like they're making us feel bad about like dive into that. I want to hear more.
Yeah, definitely. So, first of all, I'll go ahead and give us Brene Brown's definition of shame, just so that we can, that can feel kind of nebulous, the concept of shame. And so she defines shame as an intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. And that's the end of her quote. So, what I like to talk about oftentimes is how our deepest desire as humans is to be loved and known deeply, and to feel that towards others as well. And so, what shame does is it goes to the core of our deepest human desires. And so, to me, this feels like sacred ground that these advertisers and marketers and corporations are treading on here, like going to the core of who we are as humans. And so, this is like, so most recently, these numbers are not totally up to date. Like, I think they'd probably be higher if we had them like today's numbers around this. But just to give you some idea, so we know that the diet and wellness industry, the last I checked, was a $648 billion industry, and the beauty and anti-aging industry was $999 billion. So what I would love us to start seeing is that basically oftentimes like problems are being invented. Like the term cellulite wasn't basically made up, essentially using cellulite as a problem was given to us or sold to us by Vogue, and I believe it was the 1970s, maybe like 1969. So basically making cellulite, calling cellulite a problem. Well, so cellulite was, that term existed before then, but actually calling it what it is today was invented by Vogue in the 70s or 1969. But this is kind of this idea of inventing a problem so that a product can be sold. So I recently did not even know about the term. I was just thinking about this morning. The like 11s. Have you heard of 11s? It's like these two wrinkles up here. Someone had mentioned that. And so like I had never even thought about it before. But now when I look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, oh yeah, there are the 11s, like the wrinkles that that happen there. And so, but it made me think of this idea of this industries making us feel self-conscious about certain things so that they can sell us a product. And so I see this happening like all over the place in diet and beauty culture. And I think one of the bigger ones I would say that I'm seeing a ton of right now is the anti-aging industry. And I recently heard an interview where, anti-aging used to be targeted more, I would say, like middle age and up. Whereas now we're seeing women in their 20s and 30s becoming really anxious about aging and wrinkles. And I've also recently, well, not too recent, but like in the spring, I interviewed Jessica DeFino, who was trying to kind of like debunk the fact that we may not need any like facial products, and actually our skin, like I think she uses like honey or something like that, just and water. So just to say, like, this is maybe like the old snake oil trick, like what we're buying really is not what is being promised. Like the results are not what is actually being promised.
That's so true. Gross. It makes me mad. Like,
Totally.
I'm just like thinking of all these things that you think, like, oh, it's not, it's like fear based too. Like,
Yes.
I don't want cellulite on my ankles or something. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what do you, man, a PS, like, you're not even gonna get it, but whatever. Like, ankles, whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just making something up, but like,
Yes.
you think, well, I don't want that. So, because again, why do I not want that? Because if I had that, then that might mean that fill in the blank, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not killing it in society. I might be viewed differently. Whatever. So, therefore, I should get that thing so that I don't get cellulite. I don't know. I'm just like making
Yeah.
stuff. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, what? Like, it's not even a thing. Or even if it is, what gives? Like, but that's so true. It's like a falsity
Yes.
based off of fear, and it works. People are buying all of the things. It
Yes.
totally works. Whoa.
Well, and what I talk about in the book is like what we are actually longing for is like deep relational intimacy and deep joy, and this is not going to give it to us. Like
Yeah.
if anything, and that's like what I really just really am like longing for people to see, because I had to live this basically to see like it's actually when you follow it down, it actually is an empty, like deeply empty, but also toxic. Like it actually will deplete us. It does the opposite of what it promises.
Yes. I'm taking notes. That's so true. What we're really longing for is deep intimacy and deep joy. The diet and beauty culture is the opposite of this.
Yeah.
So how can we then, like, I want to shift gears because I want to then, I love that your book highlights all these ways. So if you are just joining us, Soul Deep Beauty, Melissa Johnson, fighting for our true worth in a world demanding flawless. Okay, so the book is linked in the show notes, or just below. So check that out, get it so you can take it in yourself, help your daughters and sons as well, and all your people understand this. So I want to shift into, okay, so we've got to understand and wrap our minds around all these lies that are really like there to get us to take a step and purchase something or do something different, right? So how then do how do we bridge the gap in, like, again, you just said, like, what we want is joy and intimacy. None of that is going to give it to us. In fact, it's going to deplete us even more and bring us into this place of disorientation and disorder. How do we what do we do then? Like, how do we break free from it? I did hear you say just a minute ago, turning off, tuning down, like tuning down.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
I need more
Yeah.
coffee. But like, stepping outside of, okay, where am I even getting those messages from, right?
Yeah.
Is it social media? Is it TV? Is it the movies? Is it the magazines? Is it the whatever?
Yeah.
And then, let's talk about that. How do we move into then actual intimacy and joy?
Yes. So that's part two of the book. And I think one way to do this is Dr. Hillary McBride said this so well. She was on my podcast early on, and she said in her own journey, she had to like burn down society's ideas of beauty. And I just keep coming back to the wisdom of that. Like, I feel like once we start seeing through the lies of it, we just start seeing how false it is and how it isn't real. And so whatever we can do to start to invalidate it for what it is, because I just think it is an untrue, invalid idea of beauty. Because I think the fruits of authentic beauty actually bring about connection and intimacy and integration, whereas I think false beauty does the opposite of that. It disconnects us. Like we see the fruits of uh, different kinds of beauty by or we see the truth of beauty by its fruits, and societal beauty does not have good fruit. And so like I said, so part one is all about kind of this awareness, so we can start to, in Hillary's words, kind of to burn down this idea of beauty, or in my words, to kind of shed broken beauty so that we can walk into something truer and more real. And so that's what part two is all about in my book. And I talk about redefining beauty again. And I'm defining it as the life of God at work in us and among us. And where this, like the deeper, from where that comes from, or the broader idea of where that comes from for me, I came across this theologian named Baxter Kruger, and he talks about the dance. And for him, what the dance is it is this like deep interconnected love that occurs between the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit in the Trinity. And he talks about how this dance is being played out all around us all the time. And so it's like this beautiful energy that we can see in the midst of like kids laughing, or the love between anyone and any relationship. We see it in nature. And so what I am seeing for myself is like, again, like the life of God at work in us and among us. So wherever we see the dance being played out, that is where true beauty is happening. And so if I can start to turn down these ideas and ideals and see through the brokenness of societal beauty and the lies that are there, I can start to, it doesn't have as much of a hold on me. I become more free. And then I actually am able to walk into and start to see what true beauty is, and start to live for those connections in life, and live out of that kind of interconnected love. And so in part two of the book, I not only talk more about where this idea came from for me, this redefinition, but I also talk about like how that makes a difference, like, and how that's made a difference in my own life in terms of how I relate with my body, how I relate with other women. Like, to your point, exactly what you said. I talk about that, how these societal ideals actually pick up, or these narratives for beauty that come from society, they actually pick up gravity and traction in our all-female groups. It's the title of that chapter is Reversing the Baby Shower Effect, because I talk about how, maybe at a baby shower, all these all-female groups, it's like, oh, I'm so bad for eating X, Y, or Z, or what I want us to see is we can actually use that gravity. It's psychologists call it, and social scientists call it, group polarization, where the beliefs of one person actually becomes amplified in a group. And so that happens with diet culture narratives, but we can reverse it, and we can actually start to amplify messages that bring about connection and thriving in our lives by start thinking about and talking about true beauty. And so, and we can change the narrative around our bodies. So we can start talking about how strong our bodies are, how grateful we are for life itself, that our bodies, like, how amazing it is that ever since we started this interview, like how many times I've taken a breath, or my heart has been beating, but I have not thought about it at all. And yet my body keeps supporting me. Like, we are miracles, and we don't talk about that. Instead, we talk about my perceived flaws that I think are actually fake. I don't think these things are actually flaws. And so those are some of the ways that we can start shedding societal ideals of beauty and start walking into this new vision of beauty.
So good. Like, so good. Because it is truly what we want. Like, oh, I'm trying to find what you said. So if we turn down the ideas and ideals, then we can become more free, right? Because you're like not going to give your attention and energy to falsities and lies.
Yeah.
We become more free, and then we can walk in true beauty and live for those connections. I think that's one of the things I loved through your words is like there's what we think is beauty isn't actually beauty. Like we've gotten so disconnected with real beauty.
Yeah.
And even in like, I love that you like talk about and give the example just now too of just like kids playing. And I think of even, with our kids, I'm trying to be even more intentional with like the uniqueness of each of them, like the beauty of how God intricately designed our brains and our personalities and our skills, our talents, our gifts, just like how uniquely amazing we are and how cool we are. Like just like the expressions and whatever things that make us uniquely us is just so beautiful. And I don't think, well, I know, this is what you talk about day in and day out. Like that's not how we talk about it. That's not what we're thinking about when we talk about beauty.
Yes.
And so that is beautiful. And I love that you're bringing that to our awareness. What would you say to the wife listening who feels like, I don't even know how I could grasp what you're talking about, Melissa? Like, I feel like super insecure with my husband. I don't love my body. I am constantly consumed with how my body could. I'd like it to be different. Like, what do you want to say to her?
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a good question. And and again, this is not like a cheesy sales pitch. Like I truly wrote this book for women to walk this journey of redefining beauty and shedding these ideas that I think just are so limiting. And so I would really invite her to please read the book. I really tried to make it like a step-by-step process of this is what it's looked like for me. And then at the end of each chapter, I say, I give additional resources. So like I've interviewed a lot of different people on my podcast to help start shedding, to do both what happens in part 1 and part 2 of the book, like shed ideas around beauty in our culture, but then also start to open our eyes to what authentic beauty is. I think this is such a journey. I mean, so I am 39, and so I have literally been inundated with these messages for 39 years. I know, so Jean Kilbourne, she's an activist, author, and researcher. She talks about how an infant or a child at 6 months old can recognize a logo.
Mm.
And so if I think that's such an important thing to know, because I think it helps us see how early things are impacting us as humans. And so for that woman, please know that this journey, like, please be patient. Please be compassionate with yourself. We know what fires together wires together in our brains. And so the more we think a certain thought, feel a certain emotion, or do a certain action, the more likely it is we're going to do it again, and the more ingrained that becomes in our brain. And so for 39 years, I've been inundated with this false idea of beauty. And so, of course, it's going to be a journey to start opening my eyes and my heart to see how false it is, and then to start learning the new rhythms of what true beauty is. And so that's why I would invite that woman to please journey with me on Impossible Beauty, the podcast, and please do read the book. Because I really am inviting other women into this journey, because I think, like we talked about, we have like, we are culture, we make up culture in our friend groups, in our homes. And so I think the more of us we can get on board with this, also, the more like the easier it's going to be for all of us to start thinking about beauty in this new way.
Mm, That's so good. And if you're like, wait, what are you talking about? Again, Soul Deep Beauty, if you're just joining us, fighting for, my brain is going right to fighting for our true worth in a world demanding flawless by Melissa Johnson. So go get it. It's linked below. It's beautiful. It's so important. Um,
Mhm.
thank you for your work and thank you for your obedience to writing and to
Mhm.
sharing what the Lord has done in you and through you.
Mhm.
And just like, it's just, again, like if you have kids, also, ladies, like so important.
Mhm.
If you don't begin to grasp this, our it's just going to be more difficult for our kids, right?
Mhm.
If we can learn this for ourselves in our homes, there's a ripple effect there. We can begin to help them see as well and them learn. And so just get the book and go through and start learning for yourself.
Mhm.
Melissa, would you mind praying over
Mhm.
the wives with us?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Just God, thank you for this space. And thank you for how you love us and how your love is, even now, just pressing in on us on all sides, and even within us, just how your love pours over us. I pray for each person listening, that their eyes and their minds and their hearts might be open to you in new ways, and they might see your beauty, just the beauty of the depths of your love for them and just in who you are, that you would just use your supernatural power to release this new understanding within them, to start to see your true beauty. And with this, I pray that you would also be working in their lives to grow any seeds, any ideas that have been planted here today, that you would just continue to use this message and these words to bring freedom and increasing freedom in their lives and in their minds and their hearts, that they might be released and they might be freed from these false things. Um, and they might be released from shame, so that they could just run with like this wild abandon in who you've created them to be, and the beauty of who they are, and also in the freedom of just knowing that they are unconditionally loved, just every inch of every atom of who they are, that you speak love over them, and may they see that today and always. I just thank you for who you are, and just that you are beautiful in like such a wild and uh, just mind blowing way. May we see more of that beauty always. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, so good. Melissa, thank you for being with us. And ladies, thank you to Melissa's linked in the show notes, and Soul Deep Beauty is as well. So go check them out. And we just thank you for taking time and spending time with us as always, friends. But Melissa, you too. Thank you for taking time and being with us today.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Thank you. Bye bye.